Hi guys. I'm talking about anabolic steroids. In my mid 20s, I tried Dianabol for a cycle. I had a lot of energy. I could pump more. I could lift heavier weights. I could stay longer in the gym, and the energy was nice and fluid. It was like natural. It just seemed natural and just boosted. But I started to have kidney discomfort, so I stopped using the Dianabol, and I looked at other anabolic steroids, but um, found out I had to inject those, and I'm not really good with needles, so it wasn't for me. I walked away. Um, but I'm not against anabolic steroid use. Um, I'm against the mindset of it. There are people that are that don't respect what these drugs can do. They don't study anything on the drugs academically, or even ask or speak, again, suck the knowledge from a pro bodybuilder or any athlete that use anabolic steroids and have used it over long periods of time and still has longevity and good health, to find out what those athletes were doing with the drugs and how they were using it. A lot of people abuse this stuff, so you find they're dying young or they have health problems, and they obviously didn't do their due diligence in studying the drugs that they were using and how they work, and cross-referencing with people who have actually used it and experimented with those drugs. That's my thing, ignorance. Another thing about anabolic steroids that I don't care for is when people call foul. Um, One athlete might do anabolic steroids because to them the risk to reward is worth it, whereas another, the risk to reward isn't worth it. So the one that says isn't worth the risk to reward, that isn't worth it, they shouldn't complain about the ones that was willing to take that step. It may not be an extra step, it may not even enhance them any better than the natural athlete, but they were still willing to take that step that the other person wasn't willing to take. To me, a person like that, a whiner like that, a cold foul or cheating, you know, their insecurities are obviously overflowing and they're trying to project their weakness or insecurities or their failures onto an athlete that's willing to go the extra mile to achieve greater things. As far as an athlete, an amateur athlete, once they go pro, it's no longer a sport, it's now a business. You have to perform, because pro sports they're entertainment, they're not sports anymore. Yes, you have to win the sport and win the game, and whoever wins, there are more accolades to get, more, rewards to be had. So obviously they're going to put out their best to win. But it's primarily a business first. And to create a legacy where you're remembered in history, you have to be the best. To make the most money, the people that make the most money are performing the best. So they get paid the best. They get the endorsements, they get the salaries, they get movie contracts, whatever they get that because they are the best in their field. So, if you are not willing to do what they're willing to do to become the best, don't call them cheaters. They were willing to do they accepted the risk to become the best, and they became the best. So I'm not against steroid use. I'm against the ignorance of people that abuse it and use it wrong, and I'm against the whiners that choose a different path because they shouldn't be complaining. They choose a different path for whatever reason. These guys choose that path to use drugs for that reason. Now, as far as inspiring, when I look at a sport, any sport, I look at the best player. In boxing or football, I don't watch football, but when I watch football, I watch the Super Bowl to see who the best is going to be. You know, in bodybuilding, I look at Mr. Olympia and some of the other ones. I don't follow the sport, but I go on and I look. I look at strongman competitions. I look at the best. I go to like towards the end, so I can see the top five compete to see who will win. And you know, we look for the best. We're not looking for the underperformers, the ones that came up short. We're looking at the best, and we are inspired by the best. So to call foul on someone cheating because they're using steroids and whatnot, it's like hypocrisy, because in the moment of their performance, we were hailing them as the greatest and the best. And in most sports, we already know that they using enhancement drugs, and we at the moment we don't give a shit that they're on drugs. At the moment, we just care that they're entertaining us. So I am inspired by the best. Let's say in bodybuilding, when I study what bodybuilders do, I study what the best do, how they do their technique and things like that. And there's someone there that teaches that. And I take what's for me, I transfer it to my athletes, and I leave the rest behind, like the drugs, because I'm not willing to go that far. But I'm still inspired by these people that's willing to go that far and to show us what a human body can look like when pushed beyond the limit. And I admire that. I live vicariously through their work and experience. And I take the knowledge that I can use from them, and I apply it to my everyday life. So I will never put down or call a juiced up athlete a cheater or less lazy, because they still have to do the work. They're born with genetics and talent, and they had a drive and mindset to push themselves to the very limit, where another person with the same abilities refused to go. I'm not against a natural athlete. I look at some of them too, to see more like physique and stuff. I like that too. But when I go to look for technique on certain things, I look at the pro bodybuilders. So that's my take on steroids. I'm not against it. I'm just against the mindset behind it. There are bodybuilders and athletes out there who have long, successful, healthy lives into their 80s, 90s. A lot of them are still alive today that's known to use drugs, mainly in the bodybuilding community. You got Frank Zane, Lee Priest, Ronnie Coleman, Jake Cutler, Sean Reyes. There are quite a few of them. They've all used drugs at some point in their life. Arnold Schwarzenegger. They all use drugs, and they all have healthy lives. So those I want to say, but there are a lot that die from it. Yeah, there are a lot of that die from it, but they abused it, or they didn't understand or study what they were taking enough to make an educated choice. Whereas you have these guys that have tested the test of time, have used the drugs, they've done all that stuff, and they're still alive today, living healthy, wealthy lives with sound minds. Rather than look at the knuckleheads on YouTube or wherever, if you're interested in using drugs and whatnot, study the people that have longevity, not the bums that just pop themselves up on YouTube for 1-2 years and show some crazy cycle, and you gonna go try to do that shit. Don't. Look at the athletes that have stood the test of time. Do what they've done, especially if it's the ones that you want to achieve the kind of physique they had. Study what they did. You may not get the exact same physique, but you'll get close enough. And if you combine various athletes, you might even surpass them. So that's my take. Like the video, subscribe, ask questions in the comment section down below. Argue with me about drugs. I don't use it. I'm not against it though. And I'm actually inspired by the people that have that level of success, and it turns out that they all, or most of them, use drugs. And those that don't use drugs, Yeah, I'm inspired by them too because they're way further along than I am. And I will study them, but my go to people would be the pros, and most of them, especially in bodybuilding, most of them use drugs. Y'all have a good day.